The restaurant fell silent as Mark stood up from his chair, his face unreadable. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She should have told him about her triplets before agreeing to this date. Now her 3 5-year-olds were standing beside their babysitter at the restaurant entrance, an emergency that couldn't be avoided. What happened next left everyone in the restaurant speechless, a moment that would change both their lives forever. If you're touched by this story of unexpected love and family, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming real-life stories that remind us of the power of human connection. Sarah Jenkins checked her reflection in the mirror one last time, smoothing down her navy blue dress. At 34, this was her first real date in almost 6 years. 6 years since her triplets were born. 6 years since their father had walked out, claiming he never signed up for this much responsibility. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend, Melissa. "You look gorgeous. Stop overthinking. He's gonna love you." Sarah smiled weakly at her phone. If only it were that simple. She hadn't exactly been forthcoming with Mark about her situation. They'd met at a coffee shop 2 weeks ago. She'd been working on her laptop during a rare moment of freedom while the kids were at a birthday party. They'd talked for hours, and when he asked her to dinner, she'd said yes without thinking. And somehow, over their text conversations arranging the date, she'd never found the right moment to mention that she was a mother to 3 energetic 5-year-olds. "Mommy, you look like a princess." Emma, the youngest of her triplets by 4 minutes, came running into the bedroom, her brothers Ethan and Evan close behind. "Thank you, sweetie," Sarah said, gathering Emma into her arms. "Now, you 3 be good for Miss Patty tonight, okay? Mommy's just going out for dinner with a friend." "Is he your boyfriend?" Ethan asked, with the directness only a 5-year-old could manage. "No, honey, he's just a friend." Sarah felt a twinge of guilt. Mark seemed like a good man, successful, kind, and thoughtful. But would he still be interested once he knew about her children? The doorbell rang, and Sarah's heart jumped. "That's Miss Patty. Come on, kids." After settling the children with their babysitter and leaving detailed instructions, Sarah slipped out the door. She'd meet Mark at the restaurant, Bella Notte, an upscale Italian place downtown. As she drove, she rehearsed how she might casually mention her children. "By the way, I have triplets." Didn't seem like something you could just drop into conversation. Mark Reynolds adjusted his tie as he waited at the table. At 38, he'd been through his share of first dates since his divorce 3 years ago, but something about Sarah felt different. There was a depth to her, a warmth that had drawn him in from their first conversation. He checked his watch. She was only 5 minutes late, but he found himself anxious to see her again. The restaurant was filling up around him, couples and families settling in for Friday night dinner. His phone buzzed, and he glanced down to see a text from his 10-year-old daughter, Lily. "Good luck, Dad. Don't be weird." Mark smiled. Lily lived with her mother most of the time, but they had a close relationship. He told her about meeting Sarah, and Lily had been surprisingly encouraging. "You need someone to make you happy when I'm not there," she'd said, with the wisdom of a child who had seen too much adult sadness. He spotted Sarah entering the restaurant, and his breath caught. She looked even more beautiful than he remembered, her dark hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders, her smile nervous but genuine as she approached. "Hi," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Sorry I'm a little late." "You're worth waiting for," then immediately felt self-conscious about the line. "I mean, it's good to see you again." Sarah laughed, and some of the tension between them dissolved. They ordered drinks, and conversation flowed easily as they caught up on the 2 weeks since they'd met. Mark told her about his work as an architect, and Sarah shared stories from her job as a freelance graphic designer. "I like that you can work from home. That must give you a lot of flexibility." Sarah nodded, seeing her opening. "Yes, I need the flexibility because—" Her phone rang, interrupting her. She glanced at the screen and frowned. "I'm so sorry, it's my babysitter. Do you mind if I take this?" "Of course not," Mark said, taking a sip of his wine. Sarah stepped away from the table, her stomach nodding as she answered. "Patty, is everything okay?" The babysitter's voice was strained. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. My mother's been taken to the hospital. Possible heart attack. I need to go right away." "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Sarah said, genuine concern mixing with rising panic. Do you need me to come home?" "Actually," Patty said hesitantly, "I'm outside the restaurant with the kids. I saw on your calendar where you were going to be. I didn't know what else to do. There's no one else who can watch them right now." Sarah closed her eyes, her perfect evening crumbling around her. "You're here? Now?" "Yes, I'm so sorry. The kids are with me in the lobby." "It's okay, Patty. Go to your mother. I'll be right there." Sarah hung up and took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. This was not how she'd planned to introduce the subject of her children. She returned to the table where Mark was studying the menu. He looked up with a smile that faded when he saw her expression. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "Mark, I need to tell you something," her voice shaking slightly. "I have children. Triplets, actually. They're 5 years old." Mark's eyebrows rose in surprise. "My babysitter just had a family emergency, and she's actually here in the restaurant with my kids. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I should have been upfront from the beginning." Before Mark could respond, Sarah saw Patty entering the dining area with Emma, Ethan, and Evan in tow. The 3 children were dressed in their nice clothes. Sarah had gotten them ready earlier in case they needed to go anywhere with Patty, but they looked confused and a little scared in the unfamiliar environment. "Those are your kids?" Mark asked, following her gaze. Sarah nodded, bracing herself for his reaction, for the polite excuse, the quick exit, the end of whatever might have been between them. "I should go," she said, already reaching for her purse. "I'm really sorry about this." Mark stood up from his chair, his face unreadable. The nearby tables had gone quiet, diners sensing the drama unfolding. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as Mark walked around the table. But instead of heading for the door, he walked straight toward the children. Sarah watched, frozen, as he knelt down to their level. "Hi there," he said gently. "I'm Mark. I'm having dinner with your mom. Would you 3 like to join us?" The triplets looked at him with wide eyes, then at Sarah for confirmation. She nodded, too stunned to speak. "I'm Emma," her daughter said, always the first to make friends. "These are my brothers Ethan and Evan. We're hungry." Mark laughed, a warm, genuine sound that carried through the now silent restaurant. "Well, that's good because this place has the best spaghetti in town. Should we ask the waiter for 3 more chairs?" As Patty hurried out with a grateful wave, Mark led the children to the table, signaling the waiter. The restaurant staff quickly brought booster seats and extra place settings, and Mark helped the kids get settled, asking them questions about their favorite foods and colors, as if dining with 3 5-year-olds was the most natural thing in the world. Sarah sat in stunned silence, watching as Mark cut Evan's garlic bread into manageable pieces and helped Emma with her napkin. The other diners had returned to their meals, but she could feel their glances, not judgmental but touched by the scene. "You're good with them," she said, finally, when the kids were happily coloring on the children's menus the waiter had brought. I smiled. "I have a daughter, Lily. She's 10. She lives with her mom most of the time, but I have her every other weekend and Wednesdays." "You're a dad," Sarah said, the realization washing over her. "I had no idea." "You never asked," Mark replied, but his tone was gentle, not accusatory. "And I guess I never mentioned it either. We both had our secrets." "I was afraid to tell you," Sarah admitted. "Most men run for the hills when they find out I have 3 kids." Mark reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm not most men, and I know what it's like to be a single parent. It's the hardest job in the world." "Mommy, I spilled," Ethan said, interrupting the moment as his water glass tipped over. Mark quickly grabbed napkins, helping to mop up the spill while making Ethan laugh with a joke about swimming fish. Sarah watched him, something warm unfurling in her chest. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope. The dinner that followed was chaotic, messy, and nothing like the romantic first date Sarah had imagined. The triplets were well behaved for their age, but they were still 5-year-olds. There were spills and loud questions and bathroom breaks. Through it all, Mark remained patient and engaged. He asked the children about their kindergarten class and their favorite superheroes. He helped Evan twirl spaghetti on his fork and listened intently to Emma's long, rambling story about her stuffed unicorn's adventures. "You don't have to do this," Sarah said quietly when the kids were distracted by the dessert menu. Mark looked at her, his eyes serious. "When my ex-wife and I split up, I was terrified of being a part-time dad. I thought I'd lose my connection with Lily. But I've learned that being a parent isn't about the time you have, it's about what you do with that time." He glanced at the triplets, who were arguing good-naturedly about whether chocolate or vanilla ice cream was superior. "These kids are amazing, Sarah. They're smart and funny and clearly well-loved. That says a lot about you." Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes. "Thank you for not walking out." "Are you kidding? This is the best first date I've ever had," Mark said with a grin, "though I admit I didn't expect an audience of 3. As they were finishing their desserts, chocolate and vanilla ice cream as a compromise, an elderly couple stopped by their table on their way out. "We just wanted to say," the woman said, her eyes twinkling, "that you have a beautiful family. It's so refreshing to see children being included rather than hushed." Before Sarah could correct her assumption, Mark smiled and said, "Thank you. We think they're pretty special." The woman patted his shoulder approvingly and moved on. Sarah looked at Mark questioningly. He shrugged. Sometimes it's easier not to explain. By the time they left the restaurant, the triplets were getting sleepy. Mark insisted on walking them to Sarah's car, helping to buckle the children into their car seats with practiced ease. "I had a really good time tonight," he said, standing with Sarah beside her car. "It wasn't what I expected, but it was better." "Even with all the chaos?" Sarah asked. "Especially with the chaos," Mark replied. "Life is chaos, Sarah. The question is who you want by your side while you navigate it." He leaned in and kissed her cheek softly. "I'd like to see you again, all 4 of you." Sarah felt a smile spread across her face. "We'd like that too." As she drove home with her sleepy children in the back seat, Sarah couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in years, the future seemed full of possibilities. 6 months later, Sarah stood in her kitchen, watching through the window as Mark pushed the triplets on the swings in her backyard. Their laughter carried through the open window, a sound that never failed to warm her heart. Her phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. "Still can't believe how that first date turned out. You hit the jackpot." Sarah smiled, typing back, "Sometimes the universe knows what it's doing." The back door opened, and Mark came in, followed by the triplets. "Lily just texted," he said, referring to his daughter, who had quickly become the triplets' favorite person. "She's excited about our camping trip next weekend." "Can we roast marshmallows?" Evan asked, his eyes wide. "And tell ghost stories?" added Ethan. "And sleep in a tent?" Emma chimed in. Mark laughed, gathering all 3 into a hug. "Yes to all of the above, but only if you help pack the car." The children cheered and ran off to start planning what toys to bring, their excited chatter filling the house. Mark crossed the kitchen and wrapped his arms around Sarah. "Have I told you today how much I love you?" he asked. "Yes, but I never get tired of hearing it," Sarah replied, leaning into his embrace. Their relationship had progressed quickly but naturally. Mark had integrated himself into their lives with patience and humor, never pushing but always present. He understood the challenges of single parenthood in a way no one else had, and he approached the chaos of life with triplets as an adventure rather than a burden. "I've been thinking," Mark said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "My lease is up next month." Sarah looked up at him. They'd discussed moving in together, but had decided to take things slowly for the sake of the children. "Lily asked me last weekend why I don't just live here all the time," Mark continued. "She said it would make more sense since I'm here most days anyway." "Smart kid," Sarah said, her heart beating faster. "She gets that from her father," Mark joked, then grew serious again. "What do you think? Are we ready for that step?" Sarah thought about that first date, about the man who had knelt down to greet her children instead of running away, about the months since, filled with movie nights and homework help and family dinners. "I think we've been ready for a while," she said. "The kids will be thrilled." Mark smiled, the same warm smile that had first caught her attention in that coffee shop. "I was hoping you'd say that." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I was also hoping you might consider making it permanent." Sarah gasped as he opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. "I'm not proposing right this second," Mark said quickly. "I want to do it properly, with the kids involved. They should be part of it, but I wanted you to know my intentions." Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she looked at the ring, then at the man holding it. "They're good intentions," she whispered. From the doorway came a small voice. "Are you going to be our dad now?" They turned to see Emma standing there, her brothers peering around her with wide eyes. The children had clearly been eavesdropping. Mark knelt down, closing the ring box and slipping it back into his pocket. "Would that be okay with you guys?" he asked seriously. The triplets exchanged glances, having one of those silent conversations that only multiples seemed capable of. Then they nodded in unison. "Yes," Emma said decisively, "but Lily has to be our sister. And we want a dog," added Evan. "And ice cream for breakfast," Ethan chimed in hopefully. Mark laughed. "Lily would love to be your sister. We can discuss the dog, and ice cream is for dessert, not breakfast." The children seemed satisfied with this negotiation and ran off again, already planning how to rearrange their rooms to make space for Mark's things. Sarah wiped away a tear. "You know, when their father left, I thought that was it for me. I never imagined finding someone who would love not just me, but them too." Mark stood and pulled her close again. "When my marriage ended, I thought I'd failed at the most important thing in life. But now I see it was just preparing me for this, for you four." Outside, the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the backyard where 3 children had been playing just moments before. Inside, in the warmth of the kitchen, 2 people who had once thought their chance at a complete family had passed them by held on to each other, grateful for unexpected second chances. "So," Mark said, his eyes twinkling, "about that dog." The story of Mark and Sarah's first date became legendary among their friends and family. The single dad who hadn't been told about her triplets before the date, whose reaction had shocked an entire restaurant, not with anger or disappointment,